Is that a porg right behind you?
Yes, I believe that's the porg you gave us.
Really? So cute.
Yeah. Somebody brought it in here and I decided to just set it up in the back of my... Now that I'm looking at it in the back, it looks like a weird troll, but it is a porg. Like, it's hard to see
a porg
from here, but it is a porg.
I suspected it was, because everything else on that couch is Star Wars.
Yeah, I guess I have a theme going. I'm thinking of getting a shelf to fill in that space there, because I'm trying to, like, what can I do to make my performance space more aesthetically pleasing? I love your skulls, Melissa.
Yes,
Thank you.
Very nice skulls.
Excellent skulls.
Yes, they're all year round.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
It's always Halloween at Melissa's house.
Melissa is a horror aficionado.
Yes. So let's introduce our special guest today. Welcome to the Feminine Mistake Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Nicole.
This is the Feminine Mistake Podcast.
This is the Feminine Mistake. I know we've got two podcasts now and it gets confusing, but welcome to the Feminine Mistake Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Nicole.
I'm your other host, Sarah.
And our special guest today is returning champion, actor, writer, director, horror expert, Melissa Lee.
Hello.
Thank you, Melissa, for joining us again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This is like the third time? Is it?
I think
it's the second. We had Melissa on in season 2 to discuss Poltergeist.
That's right. Yeah.
So she didn't do any other horror?
I don't think so.
Last year. I didn't do last year.
Yeah, okay. I don't remember what we watched. You know what? We watched Suspiria. No, it wasn't last year. And we'll actually, I think we're going to get to that. We'll talk about why we didn't podcast last year, or we'll just mention that we didn't. Anyway, we'll get there. But yes, the year before we did Suspiria with Brandon Mitchell.
That's right.
Who is now our resident witch expert.
Witch guy.
He's our witch guy because he did Sabrina with us earlier this year. Melissa, we're so happy to have you, to a badass female director on the podcast to talk about this badass horror movie.
Female directed, female written.
I know. I can't wait. So before we get into that, of course, for those of you who are here for what you've come for, we are going to be talking about Jennifer's Body. That is this month's film. So we're going to be talking about Jennifer's Body. But before we get to that, I would love to hear what you guys have been watching. What have you guys been watching lately?
Right
Just
now,
anything.
Yeah. Well, right now, Lovecraft Country.
Ooh, yes.
I am loving that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like the main thing I've been watching right now.
Okay.
I like to save things until all the episodes are out. Like when everyone started to watch it, there was only one episode out, and I was like, I can't just watch them one at a time. Like I have to binge the whole thing.
It's nice to have something to look forward to. I think to start the work week if you're a Monday through Friday kind of person.
That's true.
Yeah, I haven't seen Lovecraft Country yet, and I am very excited about it. It was filmed here, so there's a lot of Atlanta actors who I've been seeing lots of people popping up. Melissa, are you hiding a secret Lovecraft Country performance? Are you? No, I was just wondering because people have been like popping up on Facebook, like, "Oh, my episode's coming up next week," and I'm like, "You sneaky dog! I didn't even know you were on the show."
I think I would be overly excited. I don't know how.
You would have told everyone already.
Yeah.
So obviously I want to see it because it's an Atlanta show. But yeah, I've heard it's a brilliant show. So that is, I guess now's a good time to start it. Because October is all I want to watch during October is fucking scary shit. That's all I want to watch. All right,
all year round.
All year round. Sarah's like, I like to be fucking scared all year round. Sarah, what have you been watching?
So most recently, I think since we last talked on this podcast, I've been watching HGTV, just a lot of HGTV shows. Which
I gotta say is a real hard left from all that true crime that you were watching before.
That's true. I've gone on binges of all kinds of shit. So now I'm on an HGTV binge. I'm watching Fixer Upper right now.
Okay.
And it's just really formulaic, but like predictably pleasant.
So that's comforting.
Comforting. Yeah. And I put it on in the background. Sometimes I'll do stuff on my phone. Sometimes I'll like clean my room. My room's clean. I don't know why I would clean my room, but
so HGTV has you cleaning your room
when I don't need to be. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know
No,
that
it's
anything can
good.
get me to clean my room, so I think it's a lost cause.
So yeah, that's what I did all day today. Just fixer-upper.
Wow. I'm
Yeah.
glad. I think it's good to have like a safe, peaceful, predictable thing to watch sometimes, you know?
Sometimes, like, when the world is on fire. Yeah.
Yeah, when the world's on fire, like, let's watch some people pick out a backsplash. You know what I mean?
There
Exactly.
you go.
Exactly.
I think the only other thing I've been watching is Girlfriends on Netflix because it came out.
Oh,
And I
How
nice.
love
about that?
Girlfriends.
Yes? Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna have to check that out. I love a good so is that like a kind of a situation comedy kind of yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, that
It's
sounds
absolutely
delightful.
hilarious. I
Did
love
you
it.
just
Nice.
pronounce out situation comedy, Nicole?
Is that not okay to go for the full
It's
just
just so formal.
situation comedy,
Situation
a
comedy.
sitcom,
Also known as
Yes.
a sitcom. Yes.
AKA a
No,
sitcom.
I'm just giving you a hard
No,
time.
it's okay. You can give me a hard time. Hang on. The porg is like coming out of my head. So hang on a second. It's bothering me. Hang on.
Yeah. So something I
Oh,
love about Dick Pic Professional is how Robbie, there's like a painting that has a dick going like right
And
into
this
his
big
head.
going in the
Yes,
yeah.
I
there.
love
I'm
it.
just gonna perch him. That's better because now it's
Aw.
like,
Oh, it's so cute.
yeah, yeah. It was like
How
coming
about
out of my
you
head like a tumor, and I didn't like it.
how about every 10 minutes you put him in a different place and then
And then people can
on
guess. It'll be like,
And then
"Where's
yeah.
Waldo?" uh, so I honestly we have so many podcasts right now that most of the things I've been watching have been for podcasts. But I did recently purchase a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K camera, which I love. It's been sometimes people buy a lot of clothes or whatever to as part of their quarantine depression, and I'm just buying gear like as a promise to myself that one day quarantine will be over and that I will be able to make a film again.
Yeah.
So I bought the 6K. It's fucking amazing. I fucking love it. I'm having the best time learning all the features. And I have these badass lenses that I got last year. So I kind of did the reverse order. Like I bought the nice cine lenses first, and then I bought the camera because I was like, I can always rent a camera, but lenses, I mean, it's like a diamond is forever kind of shit. You've got lenses, you can fucking use those forever. Like cameras come and go, you know? Here's the thing. I feel like obviously I feel really comfortable with editing. That is my, go-to job that I do for money. I feel good with audio. I do a lot of location sound. Obviously, I have podcasting, so I feel pretty good about audio. The one thing as a filmmaker that I really feel weak in is cinematography. Like I understand it intellectually, but I don't I don't feel comfortable in my hands going out to shoot something. And also, I feel like in terms of when I pre-visualize a script with a DP, I feel like this is like an area that I am weak in. You know? So I'm hoping that the camera in the meantime will give me a reason to learn more about that. And so what I've been watching is a lot of videos about the Blackmagic 6K, but I would like to recommend a YouTube channel that I discovered last night. It's called In Depth Cine. So it's in depth and then Cine, Cine. I've been the videos are pretty short. They're like 7 to 9 minutes. And this guy I watched him describe like the difference between anamorphic and spherical lenses last night. I watched he did a video on how equipment and cinematography differs on a no budget film versus a indie film versus like a industry film. And he also breaks down individual movies and cinematographers and like breaks down their style and what type of lenses they use and stuff. And it's fucking fascinating. And I feel like I'm learning a lot. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. So if you're like, you're in quarantine, you're looking to brush up on some knowledge of cinematography, I recommend that this guy's YouTube channel. It's pretty fucking fascinating.
Nice. I'm not great with cinematography either, so.
Well, check out these videos. Here's the thing. Like I said, I understand it enough. Like I know what focal lengths are and shit like that, but I don't know much about the inner workings of the lens and how it's put together. And I also like the explanation of the difference between because I know what anamorphic is as an aspect ratio. I know that as an editor. but it's more than just the aspect ratio. The lens itself and the way that the light passes through it changes the way things look in the frame. And that's the part of cinematography that I don't know. You know what I mean? And so it was really fascinating to watch him compare different films and say, this was shot with this type of lens, this was shot with this type of lens, and then point out in the frame what makes it look different. And that's fucking cool. And that's the kind of beat you over the head with simplicity thing that I need to understand this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So check it out if you're looking for something to watch and you're wanting to learn more about cinematography. Also, if anybody has any videos or tutorials or anything that you recommend, shout us, message us on social media. I'm looking for recommendations. One of the things I want to brush up on in quarantine is learn a little bit more about cinematography. So those of you guys out there who have any recommendations, message us on Twitter at FemMistakePod and send me your recommendations. I am looking for it.
I choose to remain willfully ignorant to cinematography.
So there's like, don't send me any suggestions.
No, actually, I will unfollow you. I'm just kidding. No.
But if you want to send Sarah recommendations for house building, house renovating, or house hunting shows,
yes, please.
Or is it just house renovating? Is it also the house hunting that you like to watch?
House hunting, yes. House renovating. The house hunters are a bit like they have no.
They're so bitchy
vision.
sometimes.
They're bitchy. They have no vision. They're like, oh my god, the walls are green.
I know, it's like you can fucking paint. God, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do any of that. I mean, I've painted this wall.
It looks great.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah. Chris and I always had good intentions of like, you buy a house and you're like, we're going to do this and this and this. And then you know what? We don't.
Mm-hmm.
We sit around and talk about how we'd like to do stuff.
We still have wallpaper and bathroom fixtures that are like 1985 when the house was built. Like, we just haven't done anything.
It's like you don't do anything until it's time to sell a house. And then you're like, let's spend $20,000 making this house look fucking great and then sell it to somebody else.
Yep.
Except for you, Melissa, you and Brian have definitely done some work on that house.
Yeah,
for
absolutely. Sure. I did the color scheme and the decor in the living room.
You classed that place up. There's no doubt about it.
Good. I try.
But I remember Brian was sanding the floors and shit when he first moved in there.
Yeah, he redid all the floors, the nice and hardwood floors. He pulled up the carpet and everything.
Yeah, see, I can't do any of that shit. I pick
out
paint colors. That's all I can do.
On those shows, they like to use the words like gut job for like, no, for like a kitchen or a bathroom.
I feel like you could use the term gut job to describe a couple of things in this movie that we're about to discuss.
You really good.
And like, open concept, like that kind of stuff. Those kind of buzzwords that I feel like the shows are like, hey, can you throw these in here? Make sure you have to use the term gut job. I'm going to use the term gut job in every show that I do from now on. Open concept. And then I don't know I haven't watched those shows in years, so I don't know what the new terminology is.
Both of those could be used for horror movies also.
That's true. Open concept. Open concept horror movie. It's open. That's a great segue, I think, into today's film, which is Jennifer's Body. Oh, it's hot. It's October. Woo! And we're doing our spooky October movie, which this year is Jennifer's Body. So naturally, we had to bring on Melissa as our resident horror expert to discuss
you for bringing me
this film. So Jennifer's Body, 2009. Before we get started, of course, we'll get on to in a second. We'll get on to what everybody's experience was with the film before the podcast. But before we get into that, I just want to say how important this movie is to this podcast generally. Sarah and I and Hillary, we had sort of laid the podcast to rest at the end of season 3. We were like, we had a great time and we're going to move on to some other stuff. Sarah and I started a podcast called the Georgia Maid podcast, which we did for a year. And during that time, I had watched Jennifer's Body for the first time. So I guess this would have been in 2019, right? Because we restarted this podcast in 2020. So in 2019, I watched Jennifer's Body for the first time, 10 years after it was released. And as soon as I watched it, I messaged Sarah and I was like, Sarah, number one, you're coming to my house and we're watching this movie immediately. And number two, I want to start the podcast back up. I want to go back to doing the podcast just so we can talk about this fucking movie.
It's true.
So that's like this movie like breathed new life into this show after a year of being on a hiatus. That's right, Albus. I hear you. He agrees. So with that, let's go around and what was everybody's experience with this film prior to watching it for this podcast? Let's start with you, Melissa.
Prior to I think I probably watched it when it came out.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I have seen it. So I've seen it multiple times. And there's just something about it. I just love all the visuals in it.
Oh God, yes.
The color palette in this, just the special effects are fun. Just kind of to me, it's like a women empowerment film.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't know.
It is a feminist horror film for sure.
Yeah. So everything about the film I just love. I will say I was kind of sad some of the dialogue didn't hold up. But
yeah, there's a couple of moments that are homophobic for sure. So and a little racist. There's a couple of
little bit. Yeah.
Low-key racist moments. Yes, there are a couple things that I would say 10 years later do not hold up. Also, the cast is just white as hell. Like it just could not be whiter.
No.
There's only one person of color that I can really think of. Well, there's two. There's the bitchy girl that's always complaining to Needy.
Yeah.
And then there's the foreign exchange student. So there's one man of color in this movie, and he doesn't get any lines. And he just gets fucking straight up murdered. And the way they talk about him is pretty fucked up. So there's some things in this movie that don't quite hold up to our standards for sure.
Today. Yeah. I think that happens with all movies though.
Yeah, for sure.
No, like when I rewatched, I mean, we'll get into it. But when I rewatched this, I was like, was this intentional? Like these type of sexist, racist, homophobic lines to be
wonder,
like high school kids are insensitive. Like
I can't tell. I can't tell if the movie is self-aware about that or not.
Yeah.
Like it could be that they're like, look at these kids who are saying these things, but it's also like being played for humor. So I don't know that it's self-aware in that.
Right.
I don't know. What do you think, Melissa?
Let's call up Diablo Code.
I don't think so, because there's a couple words in there that I'm just like, I don't think you would find that in films today used in that way.
Yeah, like also I'd like to think that high schooler, well, I don't know what it's like in Devil's Kettle, but I do think high schoolers are more fluid in their sexuality. At least
not in 2009.
Not in 2009, but I'm saying in 2020, sexuality is I think there's a lot of things have opened up in that way, which I'm looking forward to talking about. But in 2009, yes, people were, especially in a town like Devil's Kettle, would have been very heteronormative.
Absolutely.
Sarah, how about you? So Melissa, long-time relationship with this movie. I'm glad to hear that you were one of the few women that did watch it when it came out. I can't wait to talk about why many people didn't. There's a very important reason why. I think a lot of women stayed away from this movie. And Sarah, what about you?
I first heard about this movie when Nicole texted me saying that we need to watch it for the podcast.
For last year, I was like, come to my house.
And I did, and it was amazing. And that's all I knew. I hadn't heard about it when it first came out. I guess I would have been like 23, 22, something like that. But yeah, I didn't hear about it. So yeah.
So, like I mentioned at the beginning here, I saw this movie last year for the first time. I do remember when it came out. I loved Juno, so I loved Diablo Cody as a writer. When Jennifer's Body came out, I immediately had no interest in watching it because it didn't seem like it was a movie that was made for me, which was confusing given that it was written by a woman and directed by a woman. I was like, this seems like a stupid, exploitive slasher movie, which I do enjoy those, but it seemed dumb. And so it didn't seem like it was made for me. It seemed like it was made for teenage boys. There's a really, really important reason for that. And I don't know if you guys have read up on this, but this movie was marketed by the studio to teenage boys on purpose. Mm-hmm. So you're familiar with the story behind this, Melissa, then?
I'm not, but I knew that it was marketed. It was marketed too.
Right. So let's talk for a minute before we get into the movie about, so Diablo Cody, writer of this film, wrote Juno, wrote Young Adult, wrote Tully, right? So very strong female characters, feminist, great dialogue. She's an incredible writer. Lots of award nominations and wins for her for Juno. Karen Kusama directs a lot of TV. As far as feature films go, she's directed Girl Fight, The Invitation, Destroyer, which was nominated for a lot of awards when it came out in, I believe it was 2018. They did not have any input on the marketing of this film. The studio said that they were just coming off of Megan Fox being in Transformers, and so she was kind of
hot girl
at the time. The studio decided we're going to market this film to teenage boys based on Megan Fox's sex appeal. Mm-hmm. None of the marketing materials even had Amanda Seyfried on them or Johnny Simmons. So I didn't even know Amanda Seyfried was in this movie until I watched it, because all of the marketing was based on Megan Fox and her sexuality, and this is not something Megan Fox wanted either. Right. So in fact, when they did test audiences, they only invited teenage boys. And all of the feedback they got was basically, this movie is dumb. Why don't we ever see her boobs? That kind of stuff. And so they didn't market it to the people that wanted this movie, which is people like me and you. Mm-hmm. They marketed it to teenage boys who would get there and see that the movie was about what it was about and not what they thought it was going to be about. And they were obviously like, what the fuck is this? And so the movie tanked at the box office and didn't really, it is now sort of achieved like more of a fan, like cult status, 10 years out from it being there. But it was, and
even if you look at the description on Nicole on was it Amazon Prime?
I have it on Amazon Prime and YouTube.
Yeah, so on the description on Amazon Prime, which you and I read this when we watched it. I also reread it with my parents, and it only describes her chasing and killing boys.
Yes, so they were marketing
about Amanda and like, yeah.
Which is the heart of the movie. The heart of the movie is this friendship between these teenage girls, and in nowhere is that mentioned in the description or the marketing at all. So I was actually angry after I watched this movie that I had been kept from it for so long. Like this, I was like, this is exactly the type of movie that I would want to watch. And I'm mad that because a bunch of fucking men in the studio system decided that I was not worth their money, and they didn't market it towards me, that I didn't see it for 10 years.
And it's also like, not only are you not worth their money, but like Megan Fox is not worth anything
but her body,
her sex.
Which ironically is what the fucking movie is about.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
All right. Well, with that, that's everybody's experience with the film Jennifer's Body prior to the podcast. So let's get into talking about this movie.
The house is a mess, Jack. The kids are a mess, Jack. You're a mess, Jack.
You have been a total bitch ever since you came to New York.
You seem sort of distant.
Let's just do it, huh?
You look stupid and rich. Stupid and rich.
Fascist.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, Jennifer's Body, 2009. Let's dig right in.
Very good year. Just kidding.
A good year. Well, a better year than 2020.
That's true.
Huh? Who, what?
Can I just start with the death scene that never happened that I wish would have?
Ooh, yes. So, yeah, let's dive right in. Melissa has some notes, I believe. Sarah and I have our usual set of notes. Let's go. Let's let you take the lead, Melissa. What would you like to talk about first?
I just want to say that I forgot Chris Pratt was in this movie.
I know, right?
Oh, was Chris
he has like 3
supposed to
lines.
be killed in this movie?
No, I don't know. That's the death I wish I had, and it never came.
No, but
Roman.
Didn't he die in the fire?
But we didn't see
He might
it.
have.
Like, she didn't consume him.
She should have.
And she should have.
Roman, who likes butt stuff, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
when he took her butt virginity, her backdoor virginity.
God. She had to sit on frozen peas or something.
The lines in this movie are so fucking brilliant. Yeah, Chris Pratt playing a real douchey character, which is even he's still. I don't like him, but there's something a little bit lovable about him still because Chris Pratt is so lovable. But he's so icky. Like,
but
he's
also
just so
he has
icky.
like 3 lines or like 5 lines or something like that.
But
and
he stands out.
Yeah, and I told my parents, I was like, and that's the last you'll see of Chris Pratt. And they were like, what?
They're like, what is he doing in this movie? He was not a big star at the time. So he only has 3 lines. But yeah, you're right. Damn, it would have been nice to see Roman get gutted like a fish.
I would have just absolutely.
I would have preferred to see Chris Pratt get murdered than football guy.
Well, you know what? I'd love to. I think that since we're already here, I'd like to talk about this. I have a theory as to why you didn't see that murder, Melissa. Okay. And the reason for that is because Jennifer's victims in this movie are very specific in the way in who they are, or emotionally who they are. They're all very different in their types. In a typical slasher movie, women are the victims. They are chased, they are stripped, they are elaborately killed, right? They beg for mercy. And in this film, they turn that on its head. And what you have are men. The men in this movie overall, except for people like Roman and except for people like the guys in the band, the men in this movie are vulnerable.
Absolutely.
They're gentle.
Yes.
They grieve. They experience fear, and so their deaths are
a little more hard hitting,
are sad, and also like she goes after them, and she says she needs them to be afraid.
Yes,
right. So let's back this up before we. I mean, obviously, I hope everybody that's listening has seen this movie, but just to recap, what happens? Jennifer's body is about 2 teenage girls. Jennifer Check and Niedermeyer, I think, or something like that. Yeah. And they've been friends since they were children. Jennifer has a very traumatic experience that leads her to become a succubus demon, and she begins killing and eating boys. Right. And so that's like the basic plot. And there's way more to it than that. But so when it comes to the point where Jennifer is actually killing these boys, I think that the reason that Roman is not one of them is because he doesn't really fit that category. I mean, maybe they could have written him that way, but
that's true.
No, then he wouldn't have been.
That's true.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been. And none of their deaths are satisfying. There's nothing satisfying about any of their deaths, I don't think.
Nope.
So
yeah, they're all sweet.
Yeah. So I want to return to that. And does anybody have anything at sort of towards the beginning of the film that you'd like to talk about? And we'll kind of work our way back around to the individual deaths, because I do want to talk about those guys individually. But I just wanted to say that one of the big things that I love about this movie is how gentle and vulnerable the men are in this movie.
That's nice. I would like to say that Megan Fox did not gracefully spin that flag.
Were you in color
guard? I was in color guard.
Okay.
Yes, and I was like,
so you did not care
also the rest of the girls, they weren't in sync, and I was like, could they at least have found a real color guard team, or like, I don't know. That was just like, okay.
So that took you out of the movie.
It did. It's okay though. It's okay.
I did not notice that.
Throw that in there.
I think they were cheerleaders though, so I'm not sure if they were color guard. I'm not sure why they were flipping flags. I didn't know that was a cheerleader thing, but I'm pretty sure they were cheerleaders, right? It's
not a cheerleader thing. There's cheerleaders, there's dance team, there's color guard,
and never the 3 shall mix.
No.
I think Johnny Simmons is actually a drummer, or he can drum. At least he's been a drummer in several movies. So
when you see Johnny Simmons, who are you talking about?
Johnny Simmons plays Chip.
The boyfriend.
Oh my God. Can we take a moment to talk about Chip?
Yes.
Sarah, why don't you start?
Oh God, I don't know. Like he's just so okay. One of my notes that all of my notes kind of are about the whole film.
That's okay. So are mine.
One of my notes is about the wholesomeness of Chip and Needy. Their relationship is so wholesome.
I know. It is. Chip is my dream high school boyfriend.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like he is. In fact, I wrote down a lot about him. He's kind of naive. He's cute. He's sweet. He's funny.
He's sensitive.
He's sensitive.
Very sensitive, yeah.
He loves Needy so much, but not in a creepy, possessive way.
Yeah. No.
She's his desktop, like, screensaver. Did you guys notice that?
Yes. Even after she broke up with him.
Oh my God.
And I mean, this, I don't know. I'm just going to talk about the sex scene because that's something
that's
very, very wholesome. Like,
yeah.
And I just love the part where she's like having this freak out, like she's seeing things, and he thinks like, I'm doing a really good job.
Well, he thinks he's doing great, and then he's like scared, and he's like, "Am I hurting you?" And then he goes,
"Am I too big?
Am I too big?"
And the look on his face, like, "Oh my God, this is the best ever."
Yes, I know. Yes. He's so excited for like a split second.
Yeah,
that his penis is too big. I felt like that sex scene, and again, I fucking love movies and TV shows that are directed by women that have when there's a sex scene in it, because it feels like authentic to my experience. Like that felt very authentic. It's a little awkward. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of sweet.
I love that they got out a condom. Like I feel like in movies it's all like, let's just rip everything off and then just like go in there and like.
And it wasn't awkward in an uncomfortable way. It was awkward in a sweet way. But like, that's what I remember, like when you're that age, like sex being like it was enjoyable, but also like you don't really know what you're doing. Like he's trying to put the condom on and he kind of snaps it on himself by accident. The whole thing. Yeah. It's very sweet and unfortunately interrupted by Needy's visions of death.
Right. Which brings me to the question. She can tell when Jennifer's coming over to her house.
Yes.
She knew about the death. I'm like, how is she so connected? Is it the necklace? Because the necklace is kind of like a talisman almost.
What about when they were kids and she drank her blood?
I think that there could be some paranormal thing going on here, but I think that it's more of a thematic thing, which is that friendships between girls, and I think this movie does a great job of it, friendships between girls can be very deep, intimate, bordering on romantic love, which I think more girls would be in romantic relationships with each other if it wasn't so taboo.
Yeah.
Like I'd like to think that in high school it's a lot like you can date girls and boys a little easier than you could when I was in high school. But when I was in high school, there were girls that went out with girls, but it was still like outside the norm, quote, like it was, heteronormative relationships are still the typical thing, or at least they were when I was a teenager, like fucking, 20 years ago or whatever. 20 years ago when I was in fucking high school. And even in this high school, like you don't see any other lesbian or gay relationships in this movie. So I feel like this brings up an interesting point, which is that Needy is obviously in love with Jennifer and Chip. Like she loves both of them.
Yeah.
And in a different world, maybe Needy would be able to be with Jennifer in a way that is romantic. So I think that but I do think a lot of female friendships in high school are very intense that way. Sandbox love never dies. That's the quote.
Oh, yeah.
Sandbox love never dies.
That was so cute.
Yeah, very cute. So
maybe that's why she senses her, because that's how intimate their relationship is.
Yeah, because I liked that she could sense her before any of the stuff happened.
Yes, exactly.
And then even after, it was just kind of intensified that connection.
Yes, absolutely. That's another thing that I really love about this movie is that I was needy. Like Needy was the type of person that I was. And I don't think there's any mistake there that her name is Needy. Like, it's very obvious why that is the name of that character. But I was definitely the nerdy, not like, I was not the hot, charismatic teenage girl. I was the hot, charismatic teenage girl's best friend. Like, that was me. In college too. Like, it continued up through my 20s. So I understand how that feels, and how it's always kind of like, why is this person friends with me? Like, they're so amazing. What do I have to offer them? And what you have to offer them is love and acceptance and stability and someone to watch over them, which is what Needy gives Jennifer. Like, we don't see Jennifer's parents, and we see her mom like at the very end.
The very end, yeah.
But nobody's looking. It doesn't seem like anyone's looking out for her, except for Needy, right?
Yeah.
So I think Needy offers her love and stability, and love and stability in the vision of what she has with Chip.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jennifer's relationships are like Roman, the cop guy, played by Chris Pratt, and Needy's relationship with Chip is really sweet and lovely, and you can see that Jennifer is jealous of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not even so much Chip as what Chip and Needy have together.
Yeah, and we don't see who Jennifer's parents are. Like, I think that's interesting. They show that we meet Needy's mom,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't meet Jennifer's parents, and so it's like, you know, what is that relationship like, and is that why she can't have a relationship like Needy has with Chip?
Well, it seems like Jennifer at this point in her life has accepted that boys want her for a particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she's learned how to leverage that, but isn't necessarily satisfied with it. Like, even when Colin comes up to ask her out, when she's kind of feeling low and defenseless because she hasn't eaten in a month or whatever. By the way, the fact that once a month Jennifer needs to eat again because she's lost her, like, she's starting to fall apart, I think is not a mistake.
Yeah.
Because we all have that once a month, right?
Yep.
But yeah, so even when he comes up and asks her out, like, there's almost this look of just like bored resignation where she's like, she's not excited. And I don't think it's because Colin is like this nerdy goth kid, which he is, but it's like, it's boring to be asked out.
Yeah. She's just used to it by now.
Yeah. Nobody's coming to give her something. Nobody looks at her in this, like, in the way that Chip does, with the way he looks at Needy, you know, like, nobody sees her really except for Needy. Needy's the only one that looks at her that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And everyone else just sees her body.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. When I was in high school, I was like, I had the Jennifer look, but the needy personality.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get asked out because I had that kind of like insecure kind of thing going on.
So
but
did you have a Jennifer check in your life?
No.
I had a lot of Jennifer checks in my life, and they were exciting, and being around them made me feel a little more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always looking out for them. They were always getting themselves, all my Jennifers were always getting themselves into situations that made me afraid for them. And I was always trying to step in and fix it. And they taught me to stand up for myself. They taught me how to do my hair and how to wear clothes that were maybe a little bit cooler than what I was wearing before. And they made me feel interesting when I didn't think that I was interesting. And they were also sometimes mean and possessive. And I think there's a very telling moment, even before Jennifer gets that demon possession thing, where they're about to go to the bar and they're standing, I guess they're at Chip's house, right? Because they were upstairs and Needy's putting on clothes. Or were they at her house? I can't tell.
I thought it was her house, but
because they just leave Chip. Like, they just fucking leave him there. But she's like, they're about to leave and they're playfully shoving each other, and Jennifer shoves her hard enough to hurt her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is something I had friends like that who, like, sometimes you'd play fight with them and it would feel very real, very suddenly. Like, this moment of violence would just appear. Like, they, would come out.
My closest girlfriend was like me, like a a needy type.
Well, I was chronically bouncing from one Jennifer check to another, like, and only bouncing because of time or distance. Like in high school, I had, or it happened a couple of times, like in different iterations of my life. But like in college, you're with a new group of people. Then after college, you're with another group of people, and like there was always me and some kind of Jennifer check.
So are you now sad that I'm not a Jennifer check?
No, I think that the Jennifer checks in my life grew up and became whole people.
Yeah.
They didn't stay Jennifer forever. They eventually grew up just like the rest of us. Like, I don't need to be validated by my relationship with other people anymore, and neither do they. And that's good for all of us, I think. And I'd like to think that Needy and Jennifer would have grown up that way too, where they could have just been two women out having brunch and they wouldn't need to have that sort of parasitic relationship that they have.
Yeah.
But when you're a teenager,
Yeah, because
they didn't
get to.
Yeah, they never
grow
get
past that stage.
I think that they probably would have eventually.
Yeah. You know what other scene, because you were talking about Chip, the scene right before that altercation with Needy and Jennifer, when they're upstairs and Chip is like saying, you don't have anything in common with her. Why are you always following her? One thing that I really, really loved about that scene is that she didn't stay. Like, he didn't guilt her into staying like I've seen in other films. She still went.
Yes.
Which I don't know why I love that scene so much, but I was like, yes, okay. She's going to do what she wants, and she respects his opinion and thoughts, but she still goes and does her own thing.
Yeah, she does
I
it.
really like that too.
I 100% agree, Melissa. I love that she did what she wanted, and also that Chip didn't feel like there was nothing possessive about their relationship, and that was really great. Like he seemed grumpy about it, but he was accepting of letting her go. I also really love two lines in that scene, and that's when she's trying on the jeans and he's like, I can see your front butt.
Yes.
He's like, I can, and then he's like, those jeans are so low, I can like see your womb or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, we need to make that phrase happen more often.
Yes.
I love where she like turns around when she's trying the clothes on and she's like, this is my rock look. And I was like,
oh, honey,
I know. Just like so adorbs, because I felt like I was probably like that.
Melissa, were you a Jennifer check or a Needy?
I think I was an oddity in high school. I was a neither. I don't know.
You were like, I don't need it. So did you have any of those really intense female friendships?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I went to 2 different high schools, and I definitely had my best friends who I still talk with now as an adult. They were definitely strong women with like strong points of view.
Yeah.
And you seem like you're a strong woman with a strong point of view too. So
yeah, I don't know so much in high school.
High school, okay.
Were any of us strong women in high school?
Right. I'm like, I don't.
It was such a strange time, high school.
Yeah. Right. I don't know. Yeah. I would have to ask my friends, like, what? Who was I?
I was an insecure person.
I owe it to one of my Jennifer checks who taught me how to stand up for myself. Like, I know it seems strange now, knowing me as you do now, that I would have trouble standing up for myself, but I did.
I would never guess. Yeah.
And so my Jennifer check taught me how to respect and stand up for myself.
Nice. I still haven't been taught that. I mean, people have tried. People have tried.
Sarah, I think you do a lot better than you think.
I would agree.
Okay.
Standing up for yourself doesn't always mean being the loudest, even as much as I may think it does. Sometimes it just means knowing when to say no, and I think you know when to say no, and that's important.
Absolutely.
No. Just kidding.
No, I don't.
No.
Okay, who's got something on their list they want to tackle next? I have so many bullet points here, you guys. It's insane.
I'm going to let you do the bullet points because I actually was doing my nails while I was watching this, so I did not take notes.
You don't have to. That's the privilege of the guest, is that you don't have to take notes.
Guest privilege, yes. Can I say what's next on my...
Absolutely, please do.
So I believe, and I know we discussed this when we first watched this, Nicole, last year, but I feel like how Jennifer behaves after she's killed is like how an assault, a sexual assault survivor acts. Like it's like you feel alone, like you're completely in your own experience and no one can see what's going on, and you don't really
She doesn't tell me
talk about what's going on.
Yeah.
You lash out, you act out, you kill people. I'm just kidding. But that kind of like, it's so extreme. It's an extreme like horror version of what it's like to be a survivor.
Yeah, I think that this movie is I think the attack on Jennifer by Low Shoulder is very clearly a metaphor for sexual assault. To me, that's immediately what I thought when I saw this movie. And I think that what happened, obviously it's about a teenage girl becoming a demon, but really if you look underneath what that is about, to me it's about a person suffering from trauma and how the violence of what was done to her leads to the violence of what happens to others. Like, so once she becomes a demon, now she has to feed on boys, right? But she can't just eat them. They have to feel afraid.
Yeah.
They have to feel hopeless. So she picks people intentionally that are vulnerable, as she was feeling vulnerable in the time that she was assaulted by these guys. And she makes them feel afraid and hopeless. And so it's like, I think a lot of times, and because violent assaults have been portrayed so much in the media by men as a device in films, as a plot point for men in the film and their reaction to someone else's assault, or at times for women to show them as victims or fragile or whatever it is, right? There's a lot of ways that sexual assault has been used historically by men in film.
Right.
What we don't talk about is how assault can also create rage. And that is part of what's happening here, is that she feels isolated, but there's also this rage where she is now going to hurt other people the way that she's been hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like how they didn't show the assault when it happened. They show it like near the end of the film. Like, you go so long into the film without knowing what is going on.
Yes.
And
so you make assumptions about her.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very clear when we see her come back to Needy's house the first time that something has happened to her.
Yes, but I'm
and
just
you're not
we
sure
don't
what it
see
is.
what actually occurred
Right.
until way after. I think most films would have showed you. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When Jennifer's ready to confess, which I think was a really hard thing for her to do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately at that point, Needy is so their rift is so deep that Needy is not ready to give her what she needs, which is acceptance.
Yeah.
And so she forces her out of the house, and maybe that would have been a turning point between the two of them, but instead it leads to their ultimate, that relationship really fracturing in a way that can't be repaired. But yeah, Jennifer is telling her what happened to her, confessing it finally, and then is rejected. Even though Needy does feel bad for her, Needy is not able to really trust her after that.
Yeah. Sorry, and that can happen with girlfriends. Like, I mean, personally, I had a really good friend who was raped, and she didn't tell me until like 8 years later. And at the time, she told me that she just had sex, and then she started having a lot of sex with a lot of different guys, and I didn't understand, and I was very like sensitive to that stuff, and we kind of like stopped being friends because of her behavior, and I didn't understand. And then when she told me way after, I just felt horrible. I was like, well, that's that. And so this aspect of the film, how they kind of like are like drift apart because of that, because Needy does not know. That was very personal to me.
And doesn't understand the trauma that she's been through.
Yeah.
Like, she knows that something's wrong, but she sees Jennifer as a threat and not as a person who is experiencing post-traumatic stress.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd also like to address the scene itself where the band members do the sacrifice, and how it's very intense, but also there's this dark humor to it. And I want to know what you guys think about the use of humor during a scene like that. Are you okay, Sarah?
I think a bird just flew into my window. Sorry. I heard like this. I'm sorry.
Wow,
like,
that's
bang.
not
Halloween, October.
not a good omen. That's for sure.
Oh no.
So what do you guys think about the use of humor during that scene? I mean, there's a lot of jokes. They sing to her at one point. They sing, you know.
I think it works for the scene only because they got the main guy, the lead singer, got the instructions for this online.
Yeah.
That
was hilarious.
Fucking ridiculous.
So
Adam Brody
everything
turning
about
that
it
amazing
is just
performance.
Adam Brody.
Absurd.
Yeah, it's absurd. It's fucking absurd. And the way that he's like telling her, like, you don't know how hard it is to be an indie band.
Yeah.
Right. We're all cute.
I think that Low Shoulder is the comedic relief of the film.
Yes.
There's
Low
so
Shoulder
many
and J.K. Simmons, no relation to Johnny Simmons at all, but J.K. Simmons, the teacher, also playing the comedic relief in this movie.
Just like the song Through the Trees.
Oh God, I fucking hate that song so much.
So terrible. And did you see in the last scene with them with the where they were playing at the prom?
Yeah.
Or whatever, and their logo was like a car on a Low Shoulder.
I hate them so much. But yeah, so there's like all of that. Sarah, what do you think about the humor in that scene?
I liked it. I think that it worked. I think that her fear was real, and I think that it didn't make her fear less real, and it just showed how they were callous and didn't understand.
Didn't care about her at all.
They didn't understand what, but also I think that
she wasn't a person to them.
Right. I think that a lot of people who do commit assault, like, they don't understand and they don't care
and they don't see the victim as a person.
Yes. Right. So I think that worked, actually. And also it was genuinely funny.
I think you needed the humor to maintain the balance of the tone of this film.
Yes.
Which is cheeky and funny.
Yes.
Even though it's about really serious shit.
Yeah.
So because that scene is so intense, if you didn't have the humor, and all of none of the humor is at her. None of the humor is meant to demean or degrade her or what's going on with her. All of the humor is based on making fun of them, making fun of the perpetrators of the violence, and how stupid they are and how awful they are.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you don't have that humor, the scene then becomes so intense that we're not in the same movie that we were a few minutes ago. Even though that event needs to happen, I think that that's truly a testament to the writing and the directing of this movie, that they were able to balance that really serious shit with the tone of the movie, which is, we're in a horror movie and we're making fun of what it's like to be a teenager. And so they were able to balance that in a way that was really expert, I think.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that they didn't even know her name and they had to take the gag off to find out her name.
That scene guts me. That part guts me.
Yeah. And just that humor really, because that attack, when he actually attacked her with the knife, it was
very violent.
Very vicious and violent. So just that humor, I think, just softened it. And like you said, it just goes with the rest of the film. If it wasn't there, I don't think it would work.
Would the spell have worked if she hadn't told him her name? Like, I thought about that in that moment. I was like, what if she didn't tell them her name? Like, would it not have worked?
I don't know, but I do think that the scene where they're stabbing her repeatedly, I think there's I've read a lot of like horror, and I'm sure you have too, Melissa, of different film criticisms about horror movies. And there's a belief in a lot of the feminist critic circles that women being stabbed with a knife, as happens a lot in slasher movies, is something very much like assault, because you've got this penetrative object and it's always being perpetrated on a woman. And I think this movie really puts that front and center, like really
Yeah.
puts that in your face and says all these movies that you've been watching where Jason kills women with a machete, they're funny and you like to sit around and watch popcorn and joke about it. But the real thing is that these women are being fucking assaulted and that
Right.
knife stands in for something.
Yeah.
And I'm a person who loves to watch those horror movies. Like, so I'm not saying like I don't watch fucking Friday. I watch Friday the 13th every year. I watch it every year.
Yes.
But we need to understand the context of what's going on, and I think this movie really puts that front and center.
Yeah.
Welcome to Plug It Up. This is the part of the show where we talk about some things and places and things that you can find out other stuff that we're up to. Melissa, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
I am doing the web series.
Yes, the Critical Crop Top comedy web show. Yes.
That's the next thing I'm up to right now. Any projects I had prior to pandemic are on hold. So other than that, I don't have anything.
Awesome. So do you have any social media you'd like people to follow you on so that when your projects start up again?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm Life Love Adventures. If you want to follow me on there, and I generally post any projects I have coming up.
Awesome. And you are heavily involved with various different film festivals as well.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite film festivals is in, I believe it'll be January, Women in Horror Film Festival, run by Vanessa Ianta Wright. So people look at that, and a lot of local Atlanta films are generally in it. So it's just a great film festival.
Speaking of powerful women in horror, like that is a festival you cannot miss.
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful festival.
All right. Well, thank you, Melissa. Yeah. So, Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
I mean, I'm doing the web sketch show too, but I think
you've got a blog, right?
I do, but I haven't added to it in the last 2 months. So,
so we're gonna low key not plug that.
Low key not plug it, but check it out if you haven't been there yet.
And how do we get there?
www.sarahalisonhodges.com.
Excellent. So check that out if you haven't read the blog yet. So both Melissa and Sarah are part of the ensemble writing and directing, and performing in the Critical Crop Top comedy web show. So this is a project that we began writing at the beginning of 2020. We had postponed it due to quarantine. And then decided, what the hell, let's shoot it over Zoom. So we're doing this crazy thing where we're shooting this. We've got dozens of actors involved. And there are 5 writers, 4 of us are directing, right? 5 writers, 4 directors, and dozens of actors involved in this.
A cast of thousands.
And we're shooting the whole thing over Zoom. It's going to be fun. And it's exciting to play around with this medium. And figure out the strengths and work our way around some of the challenges. These two have written some really amazing sketches. They're very funny, and so we're actually in the process of rehearsing this right now over Zoom, and we are going to be start shooting it next month. So. Look out for that. You can find more about that on the Critical Crop Top, which of course also produces this podcast. You can find more about the web show on Critical Crop Top. Our social media. So it's at Critical Crop Top on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can go to the YouTube page where we're actually releasing our catalog of sketches that we have recorded over the years. So we've done a bunch of live shows with which both Sarah and Melissa have performed, directed, and written in. And we've recorded all of our live shows over the years, starting in 2016, but had never released this footage. So we are now releasing these sketches, and we recently released Melissa's sketch, I'd Like a Refund. So that's up on the YouTube channel, and several of Sarah's sketches as well. I believe Gateway Drug is up. And some other forthcoming sketches will be released as well. So that's just Critical Crop Top on YouTube. So you can find us on YouTube. Also, the vidcast version of this podcast. So if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Spotify or wherever you get your favorite podcasts, you can also watch the video version of this on YouTube and see our lovely faces and all of our fun Halloween makeup and Melissa's skull blanket and all of that stuff.
And Albus, the cat.
And my cat.
Albus the cat. I'd also like to plug the other weird podcast that Sarah and I are doing called the Adam and Andy podcast, where we only watch Adam Driver and Andy Samberg movies. We just did Marriage Story and somehow found ways to be thirsty in a sad movie about divorce. We managed it somehow. It wasn't difficult when you're
not hard to do.
It's not hard to do with Adam Driver. And the next movie we're watching is also about divorce, weirdly.
Yes.
Celeste and Jesse Forever.
Oh.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So we spin a wheel every month. We don't know what's going to be on there. And that's what we picked. So, you can find that podcast, the Adam and Andy podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Adam and Andy Podcast, and you can find us on Twitter, Adam Andy Pod. And of course, you can find this podcast. You can tell us, what did you think about Jennifer's Body? What's your favorite horror movie? What's your comfort horror movie during the Halloween season? Let us know. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Feminine Mistake Pod, and you can find us on Twitter at Fem Mistake Pod. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I like to fire off all the handles.
Yeah,
I love it. You guys are so good at this.
Oh, stop it.
For real. I'm like, oh Lord. I came
Nicole
very
is
unprepared.
I have everything written down. If I don't write shit down, it's like it. I mean, Sarah has caught me multiple times since we've been recording this podcast in the last couple months, just like not even fucking introducing ourselves or the guests. Like, we'll just fucking talk for 30 minutes and Sarah will be like, are you going to introduce the podcast? Or
there have been whole episodes where like I don't even notice, and like it's released and I'm like, wait,
what
never
show is
introduced this.
Oops. Love it.
All right. So thank you for Melissa for joining us on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you. Audience, please come back and join us for part 2 of our discussion on Jennifer's Body. This is part 1. There's more to come. We're going to get to that ending. We're going to get to that scene at the abandoned pool. Just come back for the next episode. And thanks, Melissa. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, ladies, for having me.